Good morning. The title of this video probably sounds insane to you. I think I'm going to call it All U.S. Judges Are Spies. That's a fact. Most of you probably laugh at it, think I'm crazy. But the fact is, the supreme law in the United States is the Declaration of Independence. You don't know that because you've all been taught that the supreme law in the United States is the Constitution. That's a lie. The Constitution is not our supreme law. The Supremacy Clause in the Constitution only applies to our enemy judges who are required to uphold the Constitution above any other law, statute, ordinance, or whatever to make decisions in their court. No other law applies if it disagrees with the Constitution and you're a judge ruling on these things. Now, the reason that the Declaration of Independence made all judges in this country spies is with these words. From the last paragraph, they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown. The British Crown is a secret society that contains the Bar Association. All attorneys, which is used the same as the word lawyers now, are licensed after they pass the bar exam by the British Crown. When they pass the bar, they are all given the title of Esquire, that title of nobility right below a knight, that allows them to go out into the world and rob and abuse everyone who's not an attorney or a banker, because on earth, bankers stand above attorneys. Attorneys do what the bankers tell them to do, to foist their hoax law upon us and rob us to help the bankers abuse us. Attorneys cannot be judges in the United States. They cannot be attorneys general. They cannot work anywhere in our government. They cannot be senators, U.S. reps, state reps, governors, aldermen, city councilmen, clerks, or sitting on the Supreme Court. Lawyers or attorneys cannot work anywhere in our government because the Declaration of Independence says so, the supreme law. The Declaration of Independence made the people the authorities in this country, not lawyers. People now believe that lawyers are authorities on law. What you need to know about that is this. Law, as practiced by lawyers, is a brutal and blind force disguised as law to restrain the beasts of prey who are called men and keep them enslaved through the banksters who run planet Earth. Those are the words from page 1, items 3 and 4 of the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. It tells you that all law, as practiced by lawyers/attorneys, is a hoax. It's not law. It's a brutal and blind force disguised as law. This is what American judges practice, a brutal and blind force that is not law. The Declaration of Independence is genuine law, made by the people, for the people, with the people as the authorities. That's what everyone in America has to learn. Americans have been brainwashed and dumbed down not to know this. The people are the authorities. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, not by implied consent certified by lawyers sitting illegally in our government and establishing consent by silence. To lawyers, silence is consent. So if the lawyers allow you to be thrown off of YouTube so you can't voice your dissent, then your silence is consent for the government to keep lying to you about hoax pandemics and other matters, and to rob you and abuse you and usurp your position as the authorities. So when the judges all agree that freedom of speech can be violated if you call yourself a corporation instead of calling yourself part of the government, they're violating the First Amendment. The First Amendment says Congress shall make no law about religion or abridging the freedom of speech. So that means Congress can't make a law that says corporations can violate freedom of speech. And judges can't make that law on the bench to rule that corporations can violate freedom of speech. It's not just about our government violating freedom of speech. Nobody can violate freedom of speech. Not Facebook, not Twitter, not YouTube, not anybody. That's the First Amendment. Congress can't make a law. Implied in that, judges, who can't make laws anyhow, can't rule and make the law from the bench. Simple logic tells you that. So why do judges do that? Because American people refuse to unite, understand that all attorneys are enemy spies in our government, and order the cops to arrest all of them. We have the power to do that. That's our job as the managers of our country. We're the owners. We have politicians and cops who work for us. They don't work for the lawyers who are illegally in our government working as judges and attorneys general and other things. Cops and politicians work for us. It's our job to form an organization, excuse me, to unite the 300 million of us so we can give orders to the politicians and to the cops to arrest every lawyer practicing in the United States. Because all of them are practicing in violation of the Declaration of Independence, which absolved us from all allegiance to the Bar Association in their brutal and blind force disguised as law. That's what you need to know. It's pretty simple. You are the authority, not anyone in our government. The 300 million of us are the authorities. That's the attitude you have to embrace. You have to share this video and tell everyone you know that that's the attitude you should have as an American. You own the country. You are not subservient to anything that our politicians do, or anything that any judge does, or anything that any lawyer says. Because lawyers are enemies of the United States. All judges are lawyers. That makes all judges enemies of the people of the United States. They're making rules for us illegally from the bench. They can't allow anyone to violate freedom of speech. They can't allow lawyers to walk into their court and commit fraud to help bankers steal homes from us, which is what lawyers do every single day. Every foreclosure in the United States is fraud. I'm not going to get into the specifics of that. If you're facing foreclosure, you can learn why and how all of it is fraud. Everything the banks do is fraud. The banks can't exist because the Federal Reserve can't exist. It violates the Constitution. Only Congress can coin money. The Federal Reserve can't coin money, but they do. People who take out mortgages coin money Counterfeiting by deception. That's what happens when you sign a promissory note. You're counterfeiting money. The banks take the promissory note, deposit it as cash, and then lend you back counterfeit money that you just created with your signature. And if you don't pay, the bank steals your house through that act of fraud, and the judge saying lawyers can commit all the fraud they want in court, but you can't. The courts are a joke. They don't use English. Everything they do is fraud. They use a language known as legalese, they use Latin, and they use something called dog Latin. All the capitalized words are not there for emphasis or for some other legitimate reason. Those capitalized words are a deception. It's a specific language called dog Latin, and lawyers understand how to use it. Judges understand how to use it. But if you walk into court and try to call their bluff about using that language, they ignore you. They laugh at you. And they just rule against you. Because the judges are lawyers and they can do whatever they want because the politicians are 100% corrupt and they won't throw the judges off the bench. We have to do it. We have to fire every Democrat and Republican in the country, and we have to fire every judge in the country. We have to fire every lawyer who works in our government, and we have to appoint freedom generals instead of attorney generals to manage our freedom and the rule of freedom instead of letting them abuse us with their hoax rule of law, which is a rule of administering brutal and blind force disguised as law against humanity. Sorry for all the coughing. I think I need a cigarette. That's what you have to learn. The Declaration of Independence is our law. The Constitution is a law for our servants to obey. When they refuse to obey it, the Declaration of Independence is the enforcement for it. It gives us the right to alter or abolish such government. And it tells us when they commit a long train of abuses, usurpations, and or hoax pandemics against us, it is our right, it is our duty to throw off such government and provide new guards for our future security. That means we have to appoint honest and intelligent people to manage our affairs. By forming an organization of the 300 million people to oversee and supervise our elected and appointed servants. And to give the cops orders from all 300 million of us to arrest the judges who are committing espionage and treason against us every day, and to arrest all the politicians who commit treason by refusing to throw all the judges off the bench. And by politicians like Donald Trump appointing more attorneys to the Supreme Court. That violates the Declaration of Independence. He can't do it, but he's going to do it. He already appointed 2 attorneys, enemy attorneys, to the Supreme Court, and now he's undoubtedly going to appoint another one. We have to stop this. Trump is not your friend. No Democrat or Republican is your friend. They allow lawyers to get into our government and steal our freedom from us. They allow the Federal Reserve and all the banks to exist illegally to rob us. We have to unite and stop it. Talk about forming that organization. I tried to do it with a site I called WeTheAuthorities.com, and the owners of the internet are screwed with that, misdirected traffic away from it, wouldn't let me get emails. Wouldn't let me buy advertising to publicize it, and so it never went anywhere. I had it up for a year, I paid for it, When the year was up, it didn't go anyplace, so I just stopped paying for it and let it disappear. But that's what we have to do. People have to start thinking conventional means, as we've been brainwashed and dumbed down to believe that we can vote to change anything for either enemy D or enemy R, or that we could say no, or that we could protest to our servants instead of giving them orders. We're the authorities. We don't protest the servants, we fire them. That's what we have the power to do. That's the way you have to think. That's how all of us have to look at this. We are the ones in charge of our country. If we don't manage our freedom, these lawyers are going to stay there and they're going to keep taking it away from us. We could stop them, but we have to talk about it because that's public opinion. And the most potent weapon that exists is public opinion. So YouTube might take my videos down. Facebook and Twitter will ban me for 30 days at a time, all the time. But they can't stop all of us from talking about uniting as the true authorities in this country and firing all politicians and all attorneys and stopping them from practicing their brutal and blind force disguised as law in our country. Our law is a rule of freedom. It's not a rule of allowing banks and lawyers to rob us. But that's what America has become. And you have to stop it. You have to talk about stopping it. That's your job. You're the boss. You're the authority. You're the owner of the United States. All 300 million of you. And you have to start thinking that way and talking that way on your videos if you want to stop the abuse and have a free country. Thanks for watching.